Hello, everybody, and welcome. This is the level 2 recording for lesson 5, and today's date, January 23rd. So the topic for the level 2 presentation is all about, we could call it solar consciousness, which is really stellar consciousness, which I'm really calling stellar neurology. So I'm a galactic walk-in. I come from that scale of neurology, where each one of the stars in the sky is like a neuron. And it's a great brain, and the the neurons think together. So in that sense, let's go to the whiteboard. In that sense, your individual life is one little spark of consciousness jumping around a great neural, what is the word? Context. I'm not sure if that's the word I'm looking for. So, okay, wait a second. First, let's say we have all of these little individual stars all over the whole sky, and each one of these stars is a portal of consciousness. So this is one of the first things, because science and the objective materialist will tell you, oh, these are just like that's a nuclear furnace. It's just a little point of light. It's someplace where it's very hot. It's someplace where there's chemical and nuclear reactions that are happening. Science does not recognize that these are all little pinpoints of consciousness. So each one of these stars is an individual. And each one of these individuals, think of them as band members. They all connect together. I get a different color. They all connect together on a big giant network that is like a brain, all right? So all of these individual stars are like a neuron, and they connect together and think in unison or in symphony, in harmony, making different thought structures. And so in the recorded presentation, I speak about this, the difficulty of time scale, that if this great brain over here that we're a part of it's an enormous organism. And so the time scale, the lifespan of that organism is billions of years. And if we're over here, and let's make it like a little red dot, we're this little red dot over here. We're like a little fruit fly that we live for 3 days, and a redwood tree lives for 2,000 years. How can we even have a conversation with this much, much larger entity within which we live and which we depend upon, but which lives at a vastly different time scale? So in talking about more of this, let's go through first the idea of a star's life cycle. So the stars themselves are all alive. They are part of a great neural network, a great brain, a great thinker. And stars have a lifespan. They have metabolism. So stars get born. How stars get born is there's a collection of clouds of dust and gas. This is a nebula, not a planetary nebula, not the nebula that happens after a star explodes back into dust and gas. This is the baby form of a star. It's lots and lots of dust and gas that exists in interstellar space. And what happens is organizing principles that are these enormous galactic superwaves move through the galaxy, and they organize the dust and gas. So now I was just speaking about time scale in the sense of fruit fly life versus redwood tree life. Time scale is very difficult to connect with. And now let's talk about size scale. So we're talking about galactic superwaves. So for every one of these little individual stars to be created, what had to exist first was, let's do this. What had to exist first was, let's say, here's a bunch of like dots of stuff. I'm making little dots. I don't know if you can see that. Dots, dots, dots. That's like, little pieces of stuff. Dots, dots, dots. Okay, dots, dots, dots. And what happened to the dots was, what's a good color here? Giant galactic super waves came through. Here's a wave. Right? A sine wave. I draw these all the time in class, right? As part understanding flying rainbow lasagna and the harmonic structures of the cosmos. So this is all about cymatics. Let's write the word. Hope you can read that in this funny color that I chose. Cymatics. It means sound or vibration as an organizing principle. So there's some pretty good videos of this that you can check out on YouTube. It usually involves having a flat plate or sometimes a bowl of water as the medium which is vibrating. and then the plate has very fine particles on top of it, like sand or talcum powder or something like that. And then you can either use digital hardware to make the plate vibrate, or I've even seen using a bow of an instrument, like a violin bow, to kind of go along the edge and make a vibration, makes the plate vibrate a little bit, and organizes the particles on top of it into amazing images that look almost exactly like the pictures that I paint. This is organizing principle being expressed as vibration or sound, being through the medium of either particles or water. That cymatics is the visual expression of these harmonic overtones. Okay, what we have here in the great cosmos, in the the stellar network, is cymatics on a very, very large scale. So if you're this little tiny dot over here, on a planet, and you're so tiny we can't even see you, these galactic superwaves are waves of cymatics or organizing principle energy that go through, and they might this length, a wavelength here, this wavelength that I'm making this line of, it could be 10 billion miles. It could be an enormous size. So we have the challenge of how do we connect our minds effectively to other beings or experiencers in time that might have a very different time scale? How about to consciousnesses, linking our consciousnesses or connecting to consciousnesses that have a different space scale? If your wavelength of your thought frequency is 10 million billion miles is one wavelength, and our wavelength is hertz, 8 hertz, little tiny, like here, let's make the tiniest waves I can make. Tiny, tiny, tiny. You see these tiny, tiny waves? Those are our little tiny waves. How can we individuals integrate our tiny, tiny waves with this much, much larger thing? So this, of course it is possible, but this is just a challenge as to why these conversations are so difficult to begin between you and me as individuals and the great brain that we are a part of. So stars coalesce due to the galactic superwaves organizing principle that flow through the clouds of dust and gas known as a nebula and organize them. And as it's literally music. This is our whole entire cosmos gets made by music. And that's also down to us as individuals, like our physical fleshy forms. We are the expression of music also. Like I can get into that on a different teaching. I'll keep it focused on the stars for right now. But the galactic superwaves are like a music that organizes those particles. And what happens to make a star is the particles start to come together. They start to experience, I'll call it gravity, but it's like sticking togetherness. They start to coalesce, come together and stick together, and they start to create, chemical and nuclear chain reactions that objective materialists and science can recognize, and they also start to form consciousness. That is not recognized by science. So each star is a portal of consciousness, just like a baby. Baby is conscious. Stars are conscious. Gases and dust come together and are organized together. And when they have enough momentum, that's like conception. There is enough stuff there to actually make a star come into being. That being is conceived. And then what happens throughout the star's lifespan is an emission of light and consciousness. And so let's use red. Let's say here's light waves are coming off of that star, and they're coming off in every direction. And those light waves are not just light waves and photons that science recognizes. I'm not down on science. It's just science is a little tiny slice of the puzzle. It doesn't tell you everything. These photons that are being emitted from the sun, it's not just light energy, it's not just heat energy, it's not just photons, and the photons come from somewhere else. So each one of these little stars is a doorway or a portal of consciousness with energy coming through it from somewhere else and then out here into the physical manifested reality. And each one of these particles, each one of these photons, each one of these waveform patterns, it is a potential. Like a potential of like the possibilities and probabilities that surround and interpenetrate us. It's time. Stars emit time. They emit possibilities and probabilities and the potential for the future. And I'll get into this. They also make planets as their art project. Like, let's get a little color over here. Here's little green. They make little green planets. These are like the end result of the potentials that they send out as light. It's like sending out music. So the cymatics organize the nebulae into stars, who then are conceived or coalesce into beings, and then they emit their own music. That is itself an organizing principle that organizes the building blocks for life into actual planets with actual organisms on them, okay? So each one of these individual stars is a neuron, and there are connections between the neurons. Like I said, that photons come through these things. They're coming from someplace and going to someplace. These are portals. That is the connection between these different stars, that we have photons coming from one star, going to another star, being emitted from that star. And then, so stars have a conception. They have a lifespan. During their lifespan, they metabolize, just like me and you. Like, I eat peanut butter and jelly, then I metabolize and I run around and I do stuff with the peanut butter and jelly. The stars do the same exact thing. Like, we emit kinetic energy and vocal sounds and movement and poop, and the stars emit light as the result of their metabolism. They emit light and potentials for future and potentials for existence. They emit consciousness. And then at the end of their lifespan, when they have used up all of their fuel, they've eaten all of their peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and there are no peanut butter and jelly sandwiches left for them to eat, what happens is all of this turns around and reverses. So here's a different color of all of this light that has gone outward from the sun, now starts to turn around and get sucked back inward. And that is the idea of what a black hole is. So now I'm showing these black lines turning around and getting sucked back in. You could think of it like running a movie. First, you run the movie forwards, and here's all the things that happened in the movie. And then at the end of the movie, you stop, and then you rewind it. And then I'm gonna joke, like, then everybody moves in reverse and goes and gets rewound back to the beginning. That is exactly what a black hole is. So during a star's lifespan of emitting, it emits light, it emits consciousness, it emits potentials for time. And then at the end of its life, it becomes a black hole. It can't emit and send out anymore. What it does is draw inward. It is the balance. It draws inward all of the stuff that it emitted during its lifespan. So in previous lessons of this class, I've used this example. The super stretchy fabric of the cosmos, that's what this is, super stretchy fabric. Here I'm trying to make it look like, kind of a very messy fabric. There we go. And here's a different color here. Super heavy, infinite bowling ball of the cosmos. So we've got the super stretchy fabric of the cosmos and the infinitely heavy bowling ball of the cosmos. And that infinitely heavy bowling ball goes onto the fabric and it stretches the fabric. First, it makes it stretch a little bit, then it makes it stretch a lot bit, and then it makes it stretch so much that it stretches infinitely. And there would be an infinite arrow pointing downwards off of your screen all the way, to the other side of the planet. That is the time field. So I've drawn this for this class quite a lot. I'm going to draw an upside down time field. Look at that, everybody. That is what I draw all the time. The stretching of the fabric of time, space, and consciousness based upon the journey of your consciousness moving through time makes that fabric stretch. So this is a planet, this is a sun, this is a star that is becoming a black hole with that rubber band. Like, you've sent out the infinitely heavy bowling ball of consciousness, and now that consciousness is rubber banding back in. And as it rubber bands back in, you could think of it as, let me go back to my face. You could think of it as the star is backflipping into itself. Like, first, during the first part of its life, it emitted, it sent out stuff, now it's drawing stuff back in, and instead of going out there, it goes inward, infinitely inward. This is the journey that I represent in this shape. If we have a stretchy sphere, this shape is created by my finger. This is God's finger, stretching that in this way. Here I'm stretching it in this way. Here I'm stretching it in this way, and in this direction too. So this is how this, potential, this fabric of potential gets stretched inward, and it's an infinite journey inwards towards the source. So science describes that infinite stretching of the fabric, where you stretch the black hole, as a singularity. The fabric is stretched infinitely to that infinite stretching point, and science defines that stretchy point as the singularity. Science says that is the point at which all of the information, like all of the rules of reality, like math and physics and all the things that we know, particles and all their behavior, all of those rules break down at that moment of supreme stretchiness, at that place of the convergence point. So that is analogous to what I teach, but not exactly the same, with the idea that this is the 0th dimension and the place of complete potential. The potential for everything. Everything is there. It's infinite. Every potential that can possibly be exists there and overlaps. That is what happens at the center of a black hole. And that is what happens at the end of a star's lifespan. So science also has this idea or approach or perspective that biological death is the end of a journey. And I clearly have a different perspective, because I'm teaching you that biological death is what happens when you hit the membrane of death, and that there is, of course, a potential for being able to avoid the membrane of death and have continuity of consciousness, right? So science looks at the death of a star and it says, oh, that star has no more physical metabolism. It's dead. It's, inert. It's doing nothing. It is not inert. It's not doing nothing. We are redefining what death is. It is actually on a journey going in a different direction in time. It's backflipping into itself. It's going towards infinity. So stars are this wonderful balance of sending out energy during a portion of its lifespan and then drawing energy back in during a portion of its lifespan. Okay, now I have to get to this whole idea. So we talk about time vortex. And this is level 2, so everyone here is an expert. I can like use shorthand and move fast. So if I draw the time vortex right side up, here's birth, and then here's the membrane of death. Here's the direction that you move towards infinity. Let me just drink a little bit of water. I have to tell you about neurons. Get a different color. If this is one neuron down here, and this is another neuron over here, there is a gap in between them where I'm scribbling in red. This is called the synaptic gap or the synaptic cleft. The synapse is the space here in between the two neurons. So to reiterate, neurons do not touch like tree branches that touch together like this. They don't touch like that. Neurons only come about this close to each other. And then there's a gap that they have to jump across, that a neural impulse has to jump across. So here's a thought structure, a neural impulse is coming all the way down my arm, all the way down, it gets to my fingertips, and then, oops, what the heck do I do? There's no more road, I can't go anywhere, and I want to get across to there. It's like a Grand Canyon. How do I get across to there? So what in biology, what has to happen is the neural impulse has to turn itself into a chemical signal, go across this gap, and then reach the tendrils on the other side, on the other neuron, and then flow on its journey. So if I draw that in the little image over here, a neural impulse is coming along this way, gets to the end, can't go any further, has to turn itself into little chemical signals. I'm making little dots here. Chemical signals, chemical signals. It makes little chemical signals that can carry that impulse across the gap, and then gets to the other neuron and then continues on its journey. That is exactly what is happening to each one of us as we journey through the time vortex. So this is a refinery of time, and it's our individual journeys. We're going from down here, I don't know if you can see that, use a different color. We're going from down here. This is like one neuron. This is the edge of one neuron over here, and we are trying to get to over here. Our entire life, this area that I'm pointing to with the red arrow, is the synaptic gap. Our entire incarnation here as a human is the jumping of one neural impulse in a giant brain. And all of our attempts to refine our journey and refine our trajectory and make that jump effectively and not die, not go askew. Here's me going askew, right? Going to the wrong side, going to death. Here's me going in the right direction and making a perfect bridge between these two neurons. And I've spoken about extensively how it takes, 20 million iterations. You try all these wrong notes, wrong note, 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 until you finally find the right note that is the note that gets you out of here, that connects you to up there. But you're not supposed to have to do it through trial and error. This is our connection, the connection of your individual life to the stellar network. So here's how we are connected to the stars. First of all, just your physical body. All the physicality that you have literally comes from the stars, and the sun is a star. So our calcium in our bones comes as the end result of a death explosion, which is when you have a supernova. At the end of a star's life, what happens is it doesn't have enough pressure of moving energy outwards, so that that energy sucks inwards to itself and it kind of collapses inwards. Sometimes it creates a big like explosion, pow! And in that, hot, huge pressure and then big outward explosion, that's called the supernova. Wonderful elements are created, some of the heavier elements like gold and like calcium, that this is what we have for being able to build these bodies. So your body contains elements that are made from the death explosion of a star that has already died. And what animates you, like we've got neurological energy that's going through our body all the time right now. Like, look, I'm moving, I'm doing stuff, I'm talking. All of that energy comes from the sun. I'm pointing at the light that's coming from my window over here. That's all solar energy. All the food that I eat, that's good, peanut butter and jelly, that all comes from the sun. That all comes from the stars. We are literally made of stars. This is not just a poetic, whatever, cool way of saying things. We're literally made of the stars. And our journey, that big emphasis that I'm making here, this journey of refining ourselves and making it back to that convergence point and to the source there that emanated us, is connected to the thought processes of the stellar network, the great brain that we are within. Oops, touching my light here. So our individual lives and our individual deaths or ascensions or transcending of death is one little tiny jump in a neural signal that is going through a very, very, very great brain. So this gives us the idea of where, how important your life is, why it is important to make that synaptic jump, and also what happens when you make that jump. I'm actually jumping, I'm giving you information that's actually a little bit down the road in this class, but what happens is you have the internal realization that says the phrase, I am God. And I always joke, I'm not saying Aurora is God, Aurora is God. But when you make that jump, when you make the leap from synapse to synapse, that neuron to neuron, make that leap. When you make that leap and get from the lower aspect of the time vortex to the upper aspect of the time vortex, the moment that that connection is made, the neuron jumps the gap, the thought is, I am God. You as an individual neuron are connecting effectively to the larger stellar network neurology that is a big being, that is divine, that is God. And when you make that infinity leap, you think the thought, I am God. Each one of us as individual neural signals finally aligns with that larger persona or character or life, metabolism within which we are living. So wait, and now I have to, okay. I have my extensive laundry list of things I wanted to say. The sun is our nearest broadcasting tower of thought energy that actually comes from the center of our galaxy. So at the center, let's draw pictures. At the center of our galaxy, there is a supermassive black hole. Science tells us that at the center of most galaxies, there is a supermassive black hole. So let's draw a picture. Here's a supermassive black hole at the center of our galaxy. And then here are the arms of our galaxy. And each arm of our galaxy is made up of, an uncountable almost number of stars. And this is where the thoughts and music really emanate from. It's not completely analogous to the great composer because there are many multiple galaxies. So there are many supermassive black holes that exist out there, and they are all part of this great composer. But our nearest conductor is this supermassive black hole at the center of our galaxy. So when I say supermassive black hole, it's a hugely gravitational object that holds all of the other stuff stuck together. And when I say gravity, let's think of it as like consciousness glue. My consciousness glue causes things to like stick to me and stick together. That is what this is. It's a huge presence. It's a very, very strong amount of consciousness glue that sticks a lot of things together. And that central, incredibly strong presence sends out its emanations to the stars that are far away. And it does so non-locally. Here's a good color. Here's my emanation. My emanations are being, can you see that? My emanations are being sent out to all the stars. But that does not mean that if I send emanations from the central galactic sun, that it's going to take 20 billion years for these emanations to get there, because we were talking about time scale and the difficulty of time scale and having a real interaction because we're like fruit flies that are, you know, living on such a short amount of time. So the central massive black hole is able to send energy and information to the various stars in its body non-linearly through the folding of the fabric of time, space, and consciousness. And then let's use a different color or whatever. This gray dot over here, I don't know if you can see that. That gray dot, that's us. And that's our sun. And then once the information comes from the center of the galaxy, it gets to our nearest star, and then that star broadcasts it to us from 93 million miles away from, you know, the sun in the sky here. We're able to get those signals brought to us much closer. So there's a central thinker in our galaxy, thinking thoughts, emanating things. Like you have a brain that's emanating waves. And there are other repeaters, like cell phone towers, but I'm not a transhumanist, that are stars that pick up on the vibrations and then send them out. So this is our nearest repeater. This is our nearest thinker. And each one of, so that central massive black hole is a great composer, is a great musician, and each one of the individual stars is an individual musician. They are, go back to my face. They're not all the same. Some of them play the tuba and some of them play the piccolo, and they emit different flavors of music. So and the flavors of music are the colors of the rainbow. All right. So our sun is actually kind of yellow-green. So the sun emits a light to us that we read as white. Like if you look at that color where my thumb is on the screen, that looks white to you. It is actually slightly yellow-green. That's the flavor that this musician puts into the basic music that is sent from the supermassive black hole at the center of our galaxy. Each one of the stars is individual. Each one has its own flavor or, you know, sense of unique self-expression. Let me just do this. Their unique self-expression and their capacity to, they have each a slightly different and slightly unique viewpoint, just like each one of us. I'm looking at my notes to make sure I got everything. Stars, that's what I mean. Stars are portals of consciousness. So these are not nuclear furnaces. They are not dead. They're not stupid. They're alive beings, and each one of them is individual. And it's not part of my notes, but spoiler alert, we're the stars. Spoiler alert, at the end of all of this, you become a star. I don't mean a star like with a Hollywood Walk of Fame, Hollywood star. That's like the smaller, crappier version of what I'm talking about. I'm talking about becoming, you know, immortal or immortalized, like we are stars on Hollywood. We remember them. You were in a great movie. You got famous. You were in a great movie. We remember you for forever. That's what it is like to be an actual star. You're a portal of consciousness. You're a member of the band. You are God. We as individuals, when we make that moment of connection, we think, I am God. And that thought is nested within the larger God or divine structure. Wait, so portals of consciousness, got that? So this is all about how the stars and the sun are intimately entwined in our daily existence. First, our bodies being made of stars. You know, because whenever I say that, it's always like, that's a song, that's a hippie ideal, that's something from Carl Sagan. Like, yes, it might be hackneyed or over exaggerated. It's a truth. It's a very truthful thing. You are literally made of the stars, and your consciousness is also stellar. And what you're doing every day, like I'm telling you about avoiding the membrane of death and giving a live stream as opposed to handing in your hard drives to the sun at the end of your existence because you have died, the sun and the stars care profoundly and are intertwined on every moment of what we are doing. So it's not like, oh, I'm sitting on the couch, I'm eating potato chips, and the sun doesn't know about or care about what I'm doing. The sun totally knows about and cares about what I'm doing. All the stars do. They want us to reach that point of jumping the synaptic gap and actually having the connection to the divine being that we are a part of. That, like in your own mind, you want your mind to be able to think and to be able to perceive. You don't want your thought structure to be, you know, if you have your nerves, you don't want to have dead thought structure. You want to have those impulses jump. You want to have thought. That is what the sun wants us to do, that the stars want us to do that. You know, the divine wants us to do that. So they care about you. They care about us. They care about me. They care about all of our little details of our life. Even though you might be on the time scale, a fruit fly living this fast, they still, or it still, or we still care about it. It's itself. When I dilate my identity out to this level of the stars, it is myself. That's me. And I'm myself living within myself, just like I can be a little tiny cell on my hand that is part of my body, that is living within my body, and I'm that cell, and I'm this too. So, okay, the last thing that I wanted to say, and then I'll get to all the questions and comments, is that this network, this journey of consciousness is an infinite journey inwards towards the singularity. We, as individual embodied humans, are on an infinite journey towards the singularity being this convergence point, which is the 0th dimension, which is the presence of all possibilities and probabilities. So we came from there, we circulated out into the world. We're down here in the time field, we're in the time vortex, we're circulating around. We are on the journey to go back to that spot. And that is exactly what the stars are doing. The stars emit when they are shining. Here's energy, here's thoughts, here's stuff from sending stuff out. And then when they're done sending stuff out, making art projects, what they do is they bring it all back in. They backflip into themselves, they flip backwards, and then the stars go towards the singularity too. It is an infinite journey towards that infinite consciousness. It is an infinite journey towards that point of infinite realized consciousness. So your individual journey is a fractal microcosm of this larger organism that is also on a journey of consciousness. Now I get to questions and comments. Thank you for letting me get through all of the main points before I did this. Thank you very much. Oh, so this is, Pedro asked a question that was relating to level 1. So let me get started with this. He says, should we direct or return attacks, insults, etc., or ignore? This is about getting enough energetic momentum in your heart spinning, like getting a bicycle that you're moving really, really fast, so that you have so much centrifugal force that if someone throws some mud on you, like some insults or whatever, that it just like splashes off of you just like water off a duck's back, or like, you know, Teflon, it's not even sticking to you at all. So my approach, what I have found with my energetic metabolism, the faster I make my heart go, the faster I can make my bicycle wheels go, the more naturally that this seems to happen. Someone might be intentionally insulting to me, and I'm like I'm like laughing, like that's an insult, like kapow, I fling that mud off of me. It becomes not something that I have to specifically say, like, I'm gonna block out your insult and I'm gonna send it back to you. And I'm like, I don't have to do that, because I have this energetic metabolism that is already moving at a very fast rate. It's incidental. It's like, oh, like that was it's not the main focus of my attention, is what I'm trying to say. The main focus of my attention is, I want to play some music. I want to make some artwork. I want to connect effectively with people. I want to do fun projects. I don't want to spend an endless amount of time fighting people and boxing and being a martial artist and, you know, fighting against people. That's the good news, is that it's just like if you raise your metabolism really high. I know someone who runs marathons that are like 100 miles at a time. What a wonderful, inspiring person. And she can eat like an entire box of Captain Crunch cereal just as a snack. It's got, you know, thousands of calories in there. She uses so much energy in her running and her training, and her metabolism is moving at so fast that cereal gets burned off super fast. So I think of that analogy in terms of insults. Like if these insults or attacks or whatever come to me, at this point, my energetic anatomy is moving so fast. I can burn off that Captain Crunch super easy. It doesn't, I don't even think about it. You know, it kind of just gets spewed away. So wait. Pedro, I wrote this down. Pedro also asked me 2 questions earlier in class before we got going on this, and I wrote it down because I wanted to respond to them here in level 2. So the first one was about a question about flying rainbow lasagna healing in the 5D bakery. So I use the analogy for anyone who's just tuning in now of reality creation, how we have dough that we make with our imaginations. This is the potential for reality creation. And that is essentially what the 4th dimension is. The 4th dimension is like a long, skinny French bread that we bake out of dough, and we bake it with the observership, the ovens in front of our eyes. But the 5th dimension is not like having many, you know, breads lined up on a shelf, like you have many, my fingers are lined up next to each other, you know, breads lined up on a shelf. Well, come here, girl, you wanna come over here? Well, you actually have is the potential. Come on up, girl. Come on, boss. Aww. I'm so happy Cheeky woke up from her nap. It's level 2. She's a little late to class, but she's ready. The potential for being able to make bread. It's the flour and the mixers and the yeast and the water and, you know, everything that the flavors that go into making bread. That's what the 5th dimension and higher is. So this area of pure potential. So, you know, I was talking about rearranging the Rubik's Cube of your DNA and also of your time field of who you are as potentials in time to be able to foster greater levels of healing and the different ways that this can be done. So Pedro asked me, is that something that is only done through, like, let's say dough that has already been baked into bread? It's already reality. There's already stuff there. Or can this flying rainbow lasagna healing occur in the levels of pure potential, in the 5th dimension, before bread has even been baked? First of all, I love your thought processes. I love your, you know, your insight in the way that you're asking the question. And the answer is a big fat yes. That's really the even more expert way of doing it, that you don't have to wait until something becomes manifested into an actual physical existence to then be able to, you know, erase it with your eraser, because you don't think, oh, that looks ugly, let's erase it with my eraser and draw it in a way that looks a lot nicer. What you can do is go directly into the potential for the ugliness or thing that you don't like to, you can change it before it becomes manifested. So that's like, instead of changing something on the level of the musical like expression, you're changing it on the level of the musical score, like the blueprint that actually makes reality, as opposed to making a reality, saying it's not that great, and then fixing it up. So the answer is yes, and I love that the way of thinking about it. And the other question was, and this is why this relates, was needing clarity on sun gazing. Let me just drink a little bit of water. The actual loop-de-loop of how energy goes when I do sun gazing. So I just spoke in this class all about how we are so intimately connected to the sun and the stellar network, and how we are literal neurons in that great brain. And when you do sun gazing, what you're doing is connecting to that brain. You are a thinker and a perceiver that is connecting to that brain, and that brain is not something else. And to bring this all around to this presentation for today, what level 1 was about, the hacked human operating system, the implanted mind, the overlay that is not our original or native or indigenous mind that, you know, is at the level of yellow here, as opposed to our true insight. What we're trying to do is get out of that false overlay and reconnect to the stars. The stars, that is actually us, on a much grander scale, on a much larger dilated identity. And those thought patterns, that music, let me play some music here. That music is our true music. So on this, here's the basic backstory is what happened. The sun, our nearest star, created a bunch of planets, that's like its children, and art projects on those planets that are like the organisms that live on the planets. I made a bunch of planets, and I made organisms on the planets, like making a garden. And then the organisms and the planets are supposed to live, and the entire solar system is supposed to be harmonic and make beautiful music together. That's what's supposed to happen. Clearly, that is not happening. What happened was technological invaders came into our solar system and degraded many of the planets. That's like saying the sun is the artist and had these beautiful paintings going in the studio, and some technological, you know, species from another world came by and was like, oh, nice paintings you've got there. How about I take a rag and wipe this all off? How about I mush this with turpentine and make it look horrible? And that's what those beings did to the planet that used to be in between Mars and Jupiter, that is now an asteroid belt, that is now rubble, to Mars that has no magnetosphere, to Venus that also has no magnetosphere. And what they're attempting to do to this planet that we're currently on right now, totally not okay. So this is an insult not only to us as individual occupants of this planet. It's not just an insult or attack on our body. It's an assault on our entire solar system. It's an assault on the sun. And the sun doesn't just exist without context. The sun is connected to all of those other stars. So bad things that happen to the sun, to one little sun, affect all of the suns, all of the stars. And it's not cool. None of the stars are sitting around being like, oh, look, part of our body is being attacked. Let's do nothing about it. No. And when people have said to me sometimes where they read things where they say, is our star dead? Like, is the sun dead? There's a lot of YouTubes. There's a lot of things where people are being told that somehow our sun has died and that there's now merely a solar simulator in front of it. Here's what I can tell you and what I understand. Yes, there are artificial simulators that are sometimes deployed in the sky in lieu of the natural sun. And there are also lens arrays in front of the sun. And there's also chemtrails and other forms of particulate blockade in front of the sun. However, the real star is really there. The point of consciousness is really there. The emitter of real natural light is really there. So think about it like if you were a plant in my garden. You just think it's wintertime here, but we still have a lot of sun. But I can't grow all of my magical cannabis plants. I can't grow them all outside because they need supplemental light. So you know what? Some of the time I put them outside and it's a nice sunny day and they can get natural sunlight. And then sometimes I got to put them like, you know, in a little side room with a little sun lamp on top of them to keep them alive because it's not enough light outside. And I kind of, you know, balance between the two. This is what I think is happening in our world. Not that I justify or excuse the use of a sun simulator, but it's the idea that, do you think my plants are confused? Do you think my plants are like, wait, is this light bulb the real sun, or is it not the real sun, or what's really there? Like, no, the truth is you can feel what is the real sun. You can feel that real consciousness. Or I don't know if you can. I can feel the real consciousness. As a plant, I'm not fooled. I can feel beyond whatever technological thing is interposing itself between myself and myself. This is myself here, and that's myself there, and it's the same thing. So I'm able to connect even if there are stuff in between. So to reassure you, our star is not dead. It's not dying. No one's going to kill it. Even though I did tell you very clearly in this lesson that stars have a lifespan, they have a metabolism. That means there's the potential for death. But you know, when I tell you about how when we first came here as humans, death was not supposed to be part of our blueprint. We are intended to not experience death, even though it exists as a potential. We come from the source into reality, and then we go right back up that central, you know, pathway back to the source, which is also the destination. This is what the experience can be for stars as well. That death does not have to be something that is ever experienced by them, but death exists as a potential. So all of this is what I'm reassuring you. Let's say they wanted to, these technological using beings, let's say they wanted to do what's called a Dyson sphere, which is based on this theoretical guy, that they could build an array of solar collectors. And if this is the sun over here, you know, or the star over here, that they're going to put such an effective array around the star that all of its emissions are caught and captured, and no light actually goes further than that. Like that would be a subversion. That would not be cool. That's not what stars are supposed to, that's not the way they're supposed to be treated or supposed to metabolize. And there's concerns about that. Would this kill a star? Is this allowed? Is this not allowed? Is this going on? If you had a family member where you're like, oh, look, they're going to like put my family member in jail and, you know, like take its blood out and vampire it away, you'd be like, I'm not going to sit around and let that happen. I'm going to do something about that. I want you to understand that the stars and the stellar network, these are not like, I don't know, losers. They don't sit around like losers being like, oh, look, we're being attacked. Let's do nothing. These are hugely intelligent, hugely powerful beings, way more powerful than any of the smaller, you know, subspecies space races that fly around in clank mail spaceships and think that they can somehow kill a star. That the scale of consciousness, there's no comparison. And also the powerfulness in terms of the consciousness that is the stellar network and that natural power, it's 10 million times greater, 10 billion, uncountable exponential times amount greater than the beings who use technology. So please rest assured that our sun is not dead, our sun is not going to be killed, none of the stars are going to be killed, and all of the stars literally work together as a family to help each other and to protect one another. Okay, so wait, more questions. Joel says, so black holes are like going back to source. That is exactly correct. Yes. And so Lou says, so are these stars having a conscious death by turning inward into a black hole? I would say that they are having a conscious death, or that is part of that. It's not death. It is reconnection to source. So that the stars that are able to create a black hole in the right way and backflip into themselves, they're not going askew like this. They're not hitting the membrane of death like this. They are reaching that final denouement where they also reconnect to the source and where they also have the thought, I am God. So as the stars make their connection in a black hole, and each one of the stars thinks, I am God, each one of us also has that and says, I am God. And all the microbes in my body have that experience too. All the individual cellular structure has that too. My little dog on the couch has that too. And it's an incredibly powerful moment when all of this happens as nested consciousnesses synchronized through time. And that is what we are doing. That is the wonderful, fabulous thing that is happening right now. So you do not have to die, and you do not have to say, I'm going to get recycled, or I'm going to get reincarnated, or in some future life, I will have this transcendent moment. We all get to have this transcendent moment now in this life. You and me and the dogs and the microbes and the redwood trees and our entire planet and our entire solar system and every single star gets to have that real concurrent realization. I am God. So that concept I actually have as a teaching that's level 2 that is called the I am God circuit. It's actually for later in the semester, but I wanted to talk about it today because it felt very relevant. So Liz says, oh my God, Aurora, the central galaxy black hole is that the pull that we feel on our energy between the eyebrows. It's like that gravitational pull in the head region. If in this presentation, I'm defining gravity as consciousness glue, that this incredibly massive consciousness has like a glue or a force field that connects you and draws you in that sense. Yes, the gravity or consciousness glue of the massive black hole at the center of our galaxy is connecting to you as an individual. And even though we might be, in terms of scale, very, very tiny and very far away and moving at a vastly different rate, we're still connected. Just like if you had a little tiny aspect inside of yourself, a little tiny mitochondria inside of the cellular structure of your body, that is still a part of your music, a part of your body, a part of your metabolism, and as vital to life as it is vital to you. So because people think like, oh, you're stupid, you're small, your life doesn't matter, just die. No, you're not stupid, and you might be small, but you matter. And don't just die, because your life absolutely matters to the larger metabolism within which we find ourselves. So Chris says, at the end of the day, when a star collapses upon itself, is time itself undone such that nothing literally ever happened? No, it's not like nothing ever happened. It is balance, that something happened and then it was reversed. And then something happens and then it is reversed. So there's a difference between saying it never happened to saying that it changed its pathway. And that is the viewpoint of the 6th dimensional and higher viewpoint. So if we say that 4th dimension is like a long skinny French bread, or like a river with time flowing through the river, 5th dimensional viewpoint would be like saying, if I'm a bird flying up above the river and I'm looking at the way that the river pathway is going, right? And a 6th dimensional and higher viewpoint would be if I'm not only a bird flying in the sky looking at the pathway of the river, but I've been flying like one of those big raptors. I'm flying in the sky for years, for 100 years, 1,000 years, 1,000,000 years. And I can see, well, the river used to flow this way, but then at a certain point there was a boulder there, and then it changed its course, and then it flowed that way. Then there was a different boulder, and it changed and it flowed in this way. So the 6th dimensional and higher viewpoint sees all of the changing potentials within the time field. And so from that viewpoint, it's not like if I send energy out as a sun and then I rewind, that happened because I saw it sent out and then I saw it rewound. And then I get to see from that viewpoint, it gets sent out on a different trajectory and it gets rewound in a different way. And this is the embroidery of time. So the truth is, we are submerged in this beautiful, ever-changing art project, but we don't necessarily have the perception to even be able to perceive the, fine qualities of what is happening as we become more multidimensional or achieve a higher dimensional viewpoint. We can then be able to see all of the artistry of how time is being woven together so beautifully. So wait, let me go. Pedro says, stars die. Don't they ascend? Good, I'm happy you're asking me this question. Or are they also affected by the DNA hack? Good question. No, stars themselves are not affected by the DNA hack the way that we are, but that's like saying my whole entirety of my body is healthy, but I might have a tiny infection or infestation of something on the surface of my hand over here. My whole body is generally, healthy and well, and I'm doing well, but I'm definitely a small microcosm of my body is affected by some infestation. So our lives and our minds are absolutely connected to the sun and the stellar network. Not everything on the sun and the stellar network is infested with technology. Huge emphasis. Most of the sun's stars, consciousnesses at that level are pristine and not affected. But our galaxy is, pardon my French, is fucked up. Our galaxy, the Milky Way, has these, spiral arms, and one of the arms is totally disarranged. It's totally screwed up. So there's been a big, not only a little infection on the surface. Imagine if you have like a whole rash going up your whole arm. It's like, okay, that's starting to affect the whole body, but it doesn't affect the entire body. So stars can die, just like we have the potential for death. In Atlantis, before death was experienced here on Earth, that potential existed, but no one took that pathway. That is what happens with the stars, that the potential for disastrous, unintended death exists. It's askew, right? But none of them take that pathway. That is the big thing. So, and we'll get to your next question has to do with this. He says, Dyson sphere, more like Dyson prison or cage for the star. That's the whole idea. That if you put a technological cage around the star, then that would be like what's been done to us, and that they would try to kill it. But I'm trying to tell you like that there's a lot of family members. Like think of it like some big powerful family or the mafia or something like that. Like you think you're gonna like, attack the mafia princess. And like, you don't think that the big guys are going to come, like the big goons, the big mafia goons, they're going to come along and be like, you attack the mafia princess. Like, we're not going to allow this. So, if technology using space races, we're going to kill a star. We're going to cover it with these, micro reflectors, and no light is going to get out. The other stars would not sit around being like, oh, do whatever you want to do. Kill the mafia princess. They would be like, no, you're not going to do that. And there are all sorts of, stars are not wimps. They don't have to sit around being like, oh, there's nothing we can do. All this stuff is going on. There's nothing we can do. Stars are really, really hugely powerful in terms of their coronal mass ejections, their solar wind, the photons and the energy that they emit, and they're a huge network connected to one another acting in concert. Okay. So also just understand that like solar emissions and things that are happening and things that affect our planet, none of that is random. None of that is like the sun just decided to burp one day and a bunch of stuff spewed out. No, that's all very, very intentional. It's as, perfectly designed as a musician or an artist that makes things perfect. Like everything that the sun is sending out is intentional. So yeah, we all have to get out of that scientific mindset of like, oh, the sun is stupid. The stars are just burping and farting and emitting stuff. Like, no, they're really, really intentional, really, really intelligent. Joel says, Aurora, can you talk in more detail about the birth of a new dimension that's happening now and how it is different than the rapture harvest these alien false gods want to take us into their singularity through religions? Thank you. I will happily speak about that. And that's actually, there's plenty of material in subsequent, later in the semester about that too. The birth of a new dimension is literally when we begin to fold our DNA in a higher dimensional state and make origami out of our formerly flattened DNA. That's not supposed to be flat. That our DNA was never supposed to be flattened out. It got squashed by the genetic invasion, by these technological invaders. And now what we are doing is like a pop-up book. You're popping up back into the next highest dimension, gaining additional degrees of freedom. So let me see, what can I, how is this different than Rapture Harvest? So the long con, like a con game of the earthly religions that I call death cults, not in a mean or condescending way, in a cautionary way, that all Earth's surface religions have as part of their basic foundation programming, the idea of the necessity of death, and maybe even the necessity of a planetary death, kind of programming you with the expectation and necessity of acceptance of that, and that those experiences are a necessary doorway that you have to walk through in order to get to eternal life, in order to get to infinity. and the feeling of ascension and the feeling of being connected directly to the divine, right? It says, in order to get directly connected to the divine, you got to die first. That's what most of these religions say. And that's like, in my, view, very erroneous, because I'm drawing all these diagrams where I'm saying, this is death is going at this direction, and what you want to do is go at this direction. So it's like saying, first I want you to drive west so that you can then drive north. Like that, none of that makes sense. Just stay on the road and drive north. So my understanding is that these expectations were implanted in humanity 5,000 plus years ago. The idea that not only is your own individual death inevitable, that there is a inevitable planetary / cultural death of humanity, and that only by going through that total destruction and cataclysm can you then come out the other side and have renewal and redemption and revivification. That's not what I believe. So, and also, in ancient Atlantis, we didn't have religion like this. You didn't have to have religion. And we are moving into a post-religion experience too, because the religion is like the GPS, the global positioning, your little thing that tells you where to go, because you can't actually see, you don't know where to go. So religion is a set of, moral and ethical things that say, always do this, never do this, in this circumstance, do this, because you can't actually see where you're going. You can't actually tell what's the musical score. Is it a C? Do I play a D? Do I play an E? I don't know what to play. Tell me what to do. God, tell me what to do. The experiencers of Atlantis, they didn't have to have something external saying, tell me what to do. Give me the rule book. You knew it inside. You knew what your heart, you felt it with insight, what exactly you needed to do. So the implantation of religion came after the removal of human self-direction and, being able to see through pure insight. And it is like making someone blind and then telling them, like, first I'm going to poke your eyes out and blind you. Then I'm going to say, don't worry, you can trust me. I'm not the guy who just poked your eyes out. I'm going to lead you through this obstacle course. And I, of course, lead you through the obstacle course into a series of rotating knives that kills you horribly. And then you die. Like, that is exactly what these technological invaders of our planet have done. So part of it, the death cult programming, comes through religion. And also this comes, it also comes through some of what is called New Age teaching. Let me get into that. But the death cult stuff is so heavy. What they did was they went to all of the places that are power centers on the planet that celebrate life. So the earth traditions before the death cult religions were about respecting life, going to places where, there's a sacred spring or plants grow or whatever. And you basically thank the planet and thank the life force energy for being alive. It's a celebration of life. Like, imagine if the little tiny microbes on my surface of my body went to my belly button and they stood in a circle around my belly button and they said, we love this body. We love this belly button. We love the person that has this belly button. Thank you for giving us skin cells and epithelial cells so that we can eat them. You're so awesome. You're so great, right? That is what they used to do on the planet of Earth. And what the death cult religions did was they came in and they co-opted those beautiful places and they built churches there that were all about the necessity of death and the necessity of suffering, like, the basic Christian tenets that were about how you have to die in order to go to heaven. And then imagine, instead of the cells going to my belly button and saying, like, we're this planet, this belly button is awesome and we love the person who is here and we love your epithelial cells. What if they started instead to be like, we want to die. We all want to stop eating food and stop being healthy. And we want the body to stop being healthy. And we expect the body to die. Like, that is not good. That means you have like a bunch of microbes that are pathogenic infestations that are then rooting for your entire body to die. So that has been what has been going on our planet for, like, whatever, all of recorded human history. And when I say about the New Age stuff, be really super skeptical about a lot of the channeled materials. Like, there's channeled materials that it's called the law of one. And I do not promote that, because after careful reading, like, you go through it, it's good, chapters are good. You get to like the final chapter where it's like, oh yes. And then finally, your benevolent space brethren will come from above. Everybody's going to die, but don't worry, because you'll be saved or uploaded. That's the harvest. The whole idea that you have to die, separate your consciousness from your body, and then your consciousness can go somewhere else. It can go into a virtual reality fantasy land. It can go on board a clank metal spaceship. It can go into a big server, like a computer server. And that's the antithesis of freedom. Freedom is when you get to fly wherever the F you want to go. You fly around in the fabric of time, space, and consciousness. You are able to flow effectively around these various superstructures. You don't get stuck. So this whole harvest thing is kind of like, if you can imagine, a giant mining operation where technological beings have a big contraption and they go from place to place, and they're like, put our contraption down. Then we put raw materials ore into the contraption, and the contraption grinds everything up, and then the good stuff comes out and the poop stays behind, and we take the good stuff and we fly on to the next place. And this is what they've done from going from planet to planet in our solar system and in many other star systems. They are exploiters. They are carpetbaggers. They're like, what? How can I get stuff? How can I take stuff? How can I use it and do what I want to do with it? Totally disrespectful of the natural music of how things are supposed to be set up and how the stars actually want their art projects to be used. So these are usurpers that come. The stars make the art projects, they make organisms, they make planets, they make beautiful paintings. And then these hackers, usurpers, carpetbaggers come in and they say, hey, nice planet. Would be a shame if I invaded it, right? And they invade it and they break everything and they screw everything up. And none of this is okay. And the final answer to this is Aurora, like you're talking about, the stars looking out for one another, and they don't just let the mafia princesses being raped. How come this planet? Yes, this planet was horribly invaded and has been, degraded horribly. And no, the stars have not abandoned anyone. Hello, I'm here. I'm here. I am here as a frequency bridge connecting to the stars and the stellar network to bring that energy here, despite the hacked human operating system, despite the chemtrails, despite the Wi-Fi and 5G and other frequency weapons that are being used to block you out from being able to listen to the sun. You're supposed to be able to listen to the sun directly without any intermediaries. It's only because this is such a dire circumstance that I created this solution. It's like, how do you get energy from out there in here if everything is so locked down, if it's so imprisoned, if there's these impenetrable walls? Well, what you do is you jump up and over the walls. You vibrate those walls so that they're no longer a barrier. That's what I do, all right? And by me doing that, I've been able to bring more light energy to this planet. Hey, what does that look like? It looks like these paintings that I make. The light energy is consciousness or intelligence or information. And these patterns that I bring to you guys, that I express through artwork and sculptures and even music and other things like that, these are stellar thought patterns. And it's coming through me, and my filter is a musical, artistic person, and that's how it gets expressed to you. And the more of that intelligence that comes here to this planet, the more that this planet changes and transforms, and the more that everybody flying rainbow lasagnas, the more that you can connect yourself directly. Like, you don't need me as an intermediary to bring this light here. You start to connect directly. So it's just like a kombucha and their little scobies. Like, I'm like the initial kombucha that comes here and starts to make stuff happen. And then there are little scobies that come off. And then each one of those becomes a mama that then can have little babies. That's what lasagna is. I'm the first lasagna. I'm the originator. Making baby lasagnas, like baby scobies. And then you all grow into your maturity and you all make your own, connections. And this is the rectification. Like, this is the stars coming to help here. So it is not like the solution is clank, clank, middle spaceships fly here and they come out and they say, we're benevolent, we're here to help you. The solution is photons fly here, and that they help to rectify and uplift the situation. Those photons can be inside of you, and they can be in the form of like intellectual energy. So thank you for letting me say that. Chloe says, dimming the sun. Do you feel that the chemtrails and the terraforming going on with poisoning food, air, and water is the deliberate intention to destroy the magnetosphere? Yes, as was performing to Mars and Venus. Yes, yes, yes. Curious, although off topic. Not off topic at all. Big, huge yes, thumbs up to that. Yes, all of the technological pollutions and obstacles and impediments to real connection with the sun are intentional. They're also a modern day equivalent of what happened in ancient Atlantis, where the invaders came here, squashed the DNA of the inhabitants, and built a system of artificial Merkabahs, like the 5G network, ancient style, that then totally mind controlled everyone to the point that people could not think their own thoughts. And when you can't think your own thoughts and you're completely cut off from the stellar network, that destabilized their own DNA, their own biological architecture, and the architecture of the planet. So as we all get reconnected to the sun and the stars and the stellar network, our planet gets stabilized. Our individual journeys through time get stabilized. Our planet gets stabilized. Our planet changes its trajectory through the time field and might even change its axis, like it is currently tilted on an axis, making the 4 seasons. The planet might even change on its axis. And this is the rectification of the original catastrophe. This is not a bookend catastrophe. That's the whole point. The death cult religion of Christianity tells you in the book of Revelation that at the end of everything, your own body is going to die and the planet will die, and that's necessary for, the next chapter to happen. And I'm saying, no, that is not what is supposed to happen. That what is supposed to happen is a seamless rectification where you don't have to die and you move into a different level of experience. And this is, really what I'm experiencing in my own life and what I'm seeing happening on a larger social level. So, okay, SJ, first of all, hello, and it's good to see you. Thank you so much for tuning in. You've been a long-term student. Thank you. Sarah Jane says, maybe we are the paint, the paintbrush, the artist, and the art all at the same time. Joelle says, I love that. I love that too. I think that is absolutely accurate and apt, and that's how we should look at this. It's not like there's something else that is out there that is painting our lives for us. It's us. We're doing it, but on a different scale of identity. And then we're also the experiencer here experiencing this. And none of that, of course, is justification for abuse, because some people will be like, it's me, I'm allowed to punch myself in the face. Like, no, I'm not self-destructive. None of you are self-destructive. We don't have to justify punching ourselves in the face, because that's what, evil beings do. They're like, oh, I'm in charge of everything. I'm allowed to consume and cannibalize myself. Like, no, no, that's, if I figured out that I was in charge of everything, my initial impulse would not be like, oh, good, now I can cannibalize myself. Like, no, my initial impulse would be like, oh, good. Like, yeah, I can love myself. That's wonderful. So, we understand that there's disturbed beings do exist. Joelle says, thank you for that, Aurora. I get so frustrated sometimes when I see the constant movies, shows, media about Earth being destroyed by a nuclear disaster or whatever, and we all have to go to Mars or someplace else. Why is this entertainment on repeat? So all of that is like a programming that is attempting to make that happen again. Let me just drink a little bit of water while I keep going. The people that think, oh, the solution is Earth's environment is trashed, so we'll just build a clank metal spaceship and we'll fly to Mars and we'll cultivate and terraform Mars and we'll live in little domes or something like that, and we'll, figure out a way to grow potatoes on Mars. Like, that's all that movie. And that all of that is meant to plant those seeds. First of all, the idea of disposable planets. Hey, who goes around from planet to planet, like, eating it, chewing it up and spitting it out and only eating the best parts of it? Evil technological invaders, not you and me. We don't do that. And, I don't do that as a consciousness visitor. I don't come to this body and I don't come to this planet to say, oh, look, let's just, keep it cool. Let's just use things up and throw it away like a disposable Kleenex, and then we'll go get the next planet. I don't do that. I don't do that about my body. This body, I don't look at it and say, oh, I'm just using it for a little while, then I get to throw it away and get a new one with, different hair. No, that is not what I say. And I'm literally a walk-in to this body. I say, this is my body. I get to have this body now. I get to utilize this body and literally transform it and bring it to the levels of pure light. I don't intend to discard my body at all. And I don't intend to discard this planet or to allow this planet to die. This planet is me. Literally, it's me. So I don't say like, oh, I want my body to die and go away. I don't want this planet to die and go away. What I do want is for my body and this planet and all of our experience here to supersede the limitations that we've been, subjected to, that we have had programmed into us, and have what would be considered a heavenly experience, a divine experience, a comfortable experience, a loving experience here in the body. So our bodies were not meant to be tortured and in pain, and then you degrade and you die. No. And same thing with our planetary experience. We were supposed to have wonderful, comfortable, fun experiences here, and not, horrible torture and everything. So the people that were from ancient Atlantis that invaded our planet, that blended with our own DNA, are still moving through our DNA time structures here, and they're alive now. And they're like, hey, wait, we're going to destroy everything on this planet Earth. I got an idea. Let's build a rocket ship and fly to Mars. They're repeating the same old patterns that didn't work in the past unconsciously because they're amnesiac. And no, that's not what I would advocate for at all. So no, and Pedro's calling this very correctly, propaganda from the Pooties, the pesky occupiers of the interstices. Who do you think runs Hollywood? Who do you think runs the entertainment world and television? This is how we can understand why there are so many stories that it's programming of your mind and your expectation, along with the Bible, along with other religious programming, that you will have a personal individual death, that you'll have a cultural death, that you'll have essentially a planetary eschaton and end of the world. And I will reassure you that we have passed critical nodes, like cusps or branching off points in the time field, where we don't have to experience that. However, there was a time, 10 or 15 years ago, when those were very real possibilities that you could have experienced. Hey, like, you want to go onto the lava covers everything timeline, do it. You want to do the giant waves crash over everything timeline, do it. There's all those, there's even timelines where it's like, just like the planet between Mars and Jupiter got vibrated into rubble. Earth gets vibrated into rubble. Like, hey, if you want to experience those timelines, you can be on that. You can do that. This is unconditional love. I allow you to be on those timelines. I'm not going to stop you. But I'm not on those timelines. My focus of my awareness is not there. My focus of my awareness is here on this timeline, where we do what would be considered a magical maneuver, and we profoundly, instantaneously heal our bodies and our planet and our minds. And then we are able to have a much more fun and comfortable experience. Chika, I just want you to know, Patricia's saying she loves you. There you go. Chika's been very patient today. I think she's getting a little bit in need of some exercise outside. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for, Joelle loves you too, honey. All right. Erica says, thank you. It's almost 12 a.m. here. Oh, we understand. Thank you for tuning in. Yes, it's an international, we're a very international class. I thank you, and I appreciate everyone who tunes in from all of the far reaches of the world. And it's very challenging sometimes to get the timing right. So thank you for being here. Have a great night. Chloe says, oh, another question. Good. That I would love to hear your thoughts on Hollywood and the world stage and the elites. Why is there a gender flip going on? So, okay, this is a lovely question. It's a little bit, on a different topic, but I'm happy to speak about this. So, part of this is taking us away from our natural, undistorted aspects of self. And our natural, undistorted, selves here in the physicality. There's the male self and the female self. And I'm going to talk about these things, and I don't want people to be listening through their cultural filter of political correctness and think that I am, hate speech or saying things wrong or whatever. I'm speaking about the original ideal blueprint. If you say organisms have been created, and there's a male and there's a female, and they reproduce in this way. So maleness, femaleness, and heterosexuality for procreative sex is part of the original blueprint. If you abandon that and you simply had 100% homosexuality or 100% transgenderism with either of the sexes, in one generation, you would not have any more humans. You understand intellectually that this is the truth, okay? I'm not just kind of trying to offend you or anything like that. So the push towards transgenderism, or distorting someone from their original gender expression, is all about, it is taking away from the trajectory of consciousness, from your natural trajectory, from who you really are. It is almost a sense of human sacrifice. I said in previous lessons, human sacrifice is not only the example of cutting off someone's head and then their life ends. The sacrifice can also be you from your true life. So if your true life was to be, let's say, a great violin player, but they chop off all your fingers at birth and you can't play the violin, that's a sacrifice because you are still alive. They didn't kill you completely, but they took you away from your true self. And the same thing is happening in distorting people from their true gender expression and their true sexual expression. And again, I'm not saying this in order to insult anybody or harm anybody who's gay or who's transgender or anything like that. It's the sense that who you are naturally has been influenced by technology. That definitely in terms of transgender is a fad that is going on now in the chemical and radioactive soup that we swim around in. Transgenderism could not have existed 500 years ago because they did not have the surgical techniques, you know, artificial hormones and other things that actually make it possible for a convincing portrayal of, you know, the opposite gender. So here's the deal. When you have an X or a Y chromosome, that's literally here. It's like the genetic music that you're playing. It's the way your strings on your guitars are shaped. Like, this is a Y, this is an X. Like, that's it. That's the way it is. So it doesn't really matter if you get surgery to change your face, right? And you're like your genes are playing this music. I'm a man. I'm a man. I'm a man. I'm a man, right? But you get surgery to make your face look different, and hair extension and breast implants or whatever. So your appearance is female, but your genes are still playing the song of being a man. You're still playing the song of being a male. So then that creates a cognitive dissonance in the earthly, you know, social realm, where your mind and your visual perception says, oh, it is a female, but you can hear their genetic music. That is not a female. And so what it means is that it is taking humans away from their ability to hear the inner music. What is the inner music of a person that you're talking to? Is it a man? Is it a woman? Is it a male? Is it a female? And to be able to actually feel it, it confuses everything. It makes it much more difficult. Yeah, a person who chooses to become transgender in this time and place, I do not think they are evil, bad, anything like that. I think they've been polluted with many chemicals, influenced by technology to such an extreme degree that they cannot feel and sense their own natural music. And again, I hope that my words are not distorted or taken out of context here. I think that there's also a basic sense of lack of self-love or self-acceptance in the modern transgender movement. That a person, the justification is that a person is saying that they literally look at their appearance, do not love and accept their appearance, and need to change their physical appearance in order to find love and acceptance. And then the social, political correct approach is saying that I must accept the, you know, lack of self-acceptance of someone else. They don't love themselves, so they're doing tons of surgery and chemicals to make themselves look lovable to themselves. And I have to love them in doing that. So it's very much the expression of cosmetic surgery. You know, in cosmetic surgery, when a person changes their appearance, just, you know, recreationally, there's a basic lack of self-love. I'm not talking about reconstructive surgery if you have a birth defect or if you have an accident. That's different. I'm talking about someone who electively chooses to change the shape of their eye or their nose or their earlobes or whatever because they don't love themselves. I'm like, no, if your nose is shaped like your nose, it's shaped like your nose. You don't have to go and get it surgically transformed so that you look different. Like, why don't you love the shape of your face? Why don't you love who you are? So what I'm really interpreting transgenderism as separate from homosexuality and non-procreative sex is that there's a basic lack of self-love. And the sacrifice in transgenderism and having gender correction, gender reassignment surgery, it is a sacrifice of both fertility and sacrifice of orgasm, because the hormones end up making the, you know, person who's transitioning infertile, that males and females can no longer procreate. That itself is like a huge insult to life force energy and to, you know, the natural world and who you naturally are, the person, like saying you don't want to have a baby, you can't have a baby anymore. And also healthy orgasm and healthy sexual connection. That the gender reassignment surgery in both males and females pretty much takes away the capacity to experience an actual orgasm, which is, again, connection to life force energy, connection to the divine. That when I see transgenderism, I see people who are so technologically and chemically distorted or harmed that they choose to make themselves infertile and anorgasmic, without orgasm, so that they can have an appearance that matches their intellectual desire and their desire for social acceptance. So these are huge levels of distortion that are going on. It's unhealthy. Let's say that just in a very general way. Like, this is the expression of unhealthiness on a very profound level, or the madness of the age, or the disruption of the use of technology from the way it is supposed to be. So this is not technology that is being used in order for people to overcome birth defects or overcome physical inabilities. This is the technology that is being used in order to allow an exploration of, to allow the manifestation of very unhealthy feelings about oneself. This is like exacerbating unhealthy feelings instead of healing unhealthy feelings. So, okay. And so wait. There's even more to this now, because now we're having this discussion. And I know that I try to keep my stuff non-topical and more universal, but now we're having this conversation. So there's now this conversation about toxic masculinity. And so yes, of course, none of us think that it is appropriate for males or people that have big muscles and who are strong to just go around punching people in the face as a way of getting their way. No, yet, however, the natural structure of males is to be protective, and to be protective of, you know, people whom they care about. So there is an agenda. There's the cognitive dissonance of sexual attraction. Then there is the agenda to make males less virile, less strong. And that's definitely in order to, you know, conquer the planet more easily. People are more easily conquerable when their hormones are out of skew. They don't have as much muscle mass. They are encouraged not to use their inner feelings of protection. You know, like, I love dogs. I have a little dog over there, and part of the dog's, you know, DNA or their basic character and personality structure is being a guardian, being a protector. My little dog totally protects me from you know, things that she sees as a threat. And this whole thing of, you know, weakening males and calling masculinity toxic is the idea of saying, like, no, we don't want males to be able to be guardians. We don't want males to be strong warriors. We don't want males to be, and then there's the, you know, we don't want males to be who they can be naturally. And then the idea that we don't want females to be who they can be naturally, that somehow females have to be always protecting themselves, because there's a big thing here of the females. When females are pregnant, or when, you know, in the process of being pregnant, like, you're more vulnerable. It is not easy to protect yourself. You have a big giant belly sticking out and you're not as strong as you could be. You need to have people to protect you around you. That's it. That's how it should be. So this, I'm using a lot of words in order to say the basic estimation, the basic idea here is that invader species are subverting your natural, your connection to the natural world through your biology, and your connection to divinity through biology, in order to weaken your social structure and make you more easily conquerable. That is the answer to all of that. Please don't be insulted about the things that I say that might appear to be politically incorrect. Chloe says, if you have time, just confuses me and I cannot seem to even garner any answers as to the why of it. Oh yeah, so okay. So, and in terms of Hollywood stars and things like that, like, yes, there are many Hollywood stars who either were born as one gender and then transitioned early in life or later in life and are now, they're passing. There's a lot of imposters. And a lot of that has to do with causing a cognitive dissonance because of so many people looking at Hollywood stars as sexual objects. And if the sexual object that you look at that has a female face and that you project your sexual energy towards, I'm so attracted to whatever, Marilyn Monroe or whatever female appearing Hollywood celebrity, their appearance is female, but their genetic music is male. So it is this type of confusion where you are projecting your attractiveness, your attraction to something that you think is one gender, but it actually is emitting the music of another gender. And all of that is like subverting reproduction and life force energy and fertility. She said, yes, thank you, I'll take it. Annette says, thank you for being you, Aurora. Thank you very much, Annette. Thank you for that encouragement towards my authenticity. Yes, you know, I'm always trying to share my ideas here in a way that is not harmful. Like one time I said what I said about procreative sex in a video, and a person who is homosexual wrote in a comment that they felt that they wanted to kill themselves if they weren't allowed to have sex, if sex could only be procreative. And like, that is never my intention. I am not here to try to harm anyone or make anyone feel suicidal. And yet I share my ideas about my viewpoint of sexuality, of life force energy, of procreation and all of that, understanding that it's coming through this cultural filter. So here's another just brief aside. On my website, I wrote a description of myself like 10 years ago where I say, when I'm not in a human body, I'm not male and I'm not female. Like when I'm in this human body, I'm female. But when I'm not, I'm an abstraction. I'm not either gender. And in more recent years, when people go to my website and they read that, I've had some radio interviews where they're like, Aurora, like, what shall I call you? Do I call you she, he? What do I do? Like, I'm a woman. Like, I'm definitely a woman. I'm in a female body. So I've had to understand how much, even in the past 10 years, human socialization has changed, and how what I send out, how it's being interpreted through the collective human filter. So I sometimes have to edit my language or change a little bit. Oh, that's good. Patricia's saying, referring to the magical kick-ass timeline. I love that. Pedro says, love the lasagna. Finish watching later. Have a wonderful night, Pedro. Thank you for tuning in. Joel says, my thoughts are, why destroy your body? Why not just be a feminine man or masculine woman without judgment? I completely agree. Really loving oneself would be to say, this is what my body is shaped like, this is my identity, this is who I am, and this is who I love. And you do not have to take any kind of surgery, medicines, or anything like that to artificially change your appearance or the functioning of your body. So if you're a man and you want to wear dresses, do it. If you're a woman and you want to be a bodybuilder, do it. If you want to have a strap-on dildo, do it. Like, there's nothing wrong with any of those things. The challenge is in not accepting who you really are and trying to live up to some kind of artificially created standards. And I think the media really puts those standards on people very much about appearance, about what it is to look like a woman, what it is to look like a man. Like, I have visible arm muscles and I'm a woman. This does not make me a man. I am still a woman. Thank you. Chloe says, so you think it's a Depop strategy? I do think it's a Depop strategy. Oh, completely. Oh my God. Yes. I think that there's a strategy in terms of toxifying our environment in order to create infertility and various different things. It is a miracle that any babies are even being born in this level of toxicity, pollution, environmental pollution, and also unconsciousness. Because really, to have the conception happen, it is a form of consciousness coming together. It's like making beautiful music. And right now it is so chaotic and the music is so bad in terms of the life force energy. I'm amazed that anybody is conceiving a baby at all and that anybody is able to have a healthy child. So my hat is off to any of you parents. And one of my Facebook friends wrote about how, she had a wonderful pregnancy and she ate fruits and vegetables and, had her baby at home and they left the placenta attached. Like, that is wonderful. That is a heroic thing to be able to do that, because that is so rare in the way that fertility is being treated here. So yeah, we need to completely go back to fertility is basically respect of life force energy, which is a divine thing. Okay. So Lou says, I once heard some student of acupuncture say that his master said that this earth was only made for about 33 million people. I will tell you that the resources that are here on this earth are completely adequate to support everyone who is here on this earth, and even more, that we have such a profound amount of inefficiency, intentional inefficiency, in the way that we distribute food and resources. We could all literally live like millionaires without having to have any kind of free energy, not even bringing that into the equation, just by reducing wastefulness and becoming more efficient in an economy. Our economy is intentionally wasteful. Just understand that. I'll use as an example, like here in California, many of the houses are not well insulated. It's very, very warm. I live in Southern California. It's very warm here. Like, there's drafty windows, there's drafty doors. It doesn't matter. It doesn't get that cold here. It's intentionally not well insulated. They didn't put money into that. You can't live that way if you live in New York State. Like, you gotta plastic up your windows. You gotta get your insulation going. Like, it's considered irresponsible of a landlord if they don't have that level of insulation. So let's talk about our economy. Our economy is like, if you throw money out the window all the time, spending money on stupid things, spending money inefficiently, everything like that. We can totally restructure our economy, make it a better insulated house so that all of our heat isn't jumping out the windows so easily. It is intentionally losing heat out the windows. They like it that way because it's the technological overlords that came in here that set up this economy. It's intentionally, pardon my French, fucked up. They don't want everybody to have plenty of food. It's the game of musical chairs. They want somebody to be left out. They want suffering. So it's up to us to reclaim the economy and reclaim the way that resources are sent out so that it's not the game of musical chairs anymore. Joelle says, even as a woman, I have a really protective streak for other beings and I embrace the masculine edge within myself. Yeah, that's like the mama bear, the protective mama bear. I don't know if anybody here is a parent, but if you have a child, and I feel it very much too, you have a child or you see a child, you're like, I want to make sure that child stays safe. If I saw some little kid like walking in the middle of the street, I wouldn't just be like, oh, that's somebody else's problem. I'd be like, oh my God, I got to go get that kid out of the street and we got to find his parents. We got to find out what's going on. I would do that even for a dog. I have done that for dogs, like, because I have one dog. I now feel collectively responsible for all these other dogs that I see out there. If I see a dog running around without the leash, I'm like, hey, get over here. Where are you going? Where's your people? What's going on? So there's also something here to be spoken about abortion. If we're going to just press all these hot button issues, talking about current events, the abortion agenda, I perceive as not being at all connected to human rights, women's rights, or equal rights. That's the justification, is that women need to be able to have abortions so that they can make it in the workplace. Like, you can't be pregnant all the time, and you'd never be able to have a job, and it's hugely burdensome to have to take care of all those babies. Yes, and the solution is not getting pregnant and then aborting or murdering your unborn child. The solution is only having the pregnancies that you choose to have. And that goes down to becoming a good musician, becoming an effective cultivator of consciousness. No, you're not supposed to just have sex willy-nilly with any partner at any time. You're supposed to have sex with the right partner at the right time to make the babies that you want to have. So then there's, if you have a baby, if you get an unintentional pregnancy, then the other solution is, most women do not want to have to kill their child or the potential for life inside of them for any reason. And they do so sometimes because of they don't have enough money. Basically, it's too hard to take care of babies and work at a job at the same time. If we restructured our society in order to be more respectful of life force energy and respectful of the miracle of pregnancy and procreation and birth, that's what I'm saying. Our society is presently structured in a way that totally disrespects the miracle of life force energy, procreation, pregnancy, and birth, where pregnancies are seen as burdens, new children are seen as burdens, oh, another mouth to feed, oh, another useless eater, and all those things. And even the idea of sex as being a recreational activity that is totally divorced from the actual end result of procreation and making a new person. All of that needs to change in order for it to have healing. It is my estimation that all of that needs to change. So it's like a complete restructuring of the way that we look at. And then it's easy, oh, if you get pregnant, it's not intentional. Instead of being like, oh, let's kill it, be like, oh, let's find a way to restructure your life in order to be able to accommodate this new person who's coming here. That's what it is. And I really, it is not even about a biblical literalism that my ideas come from. It is because I perceive through my inner telescope, I can see what's going on, and I can see like this is alive. This is alive. This is something that's alive, and that is not acceptable to kill it for any reason. It's very different than saying that there's a problem to terminate a healthy pregnancy. Is very different. So that's the other thing, is that they say, oh, you got to have abortion because it might be medically necessary and the state should not control medical procedures. I actually believe in that the state should not say, oh, we ban this because you're not allowed to have this, and then you can have the baby die and have to carry your baby to term. That's horrible. No, you should not have to do that. So there should be a sensible application of medical procedures, not just the idea of using it as a, way of getting rid of an inconvenient person that you don't want to have growing inside of you. On that note, so this is, oh my God, no wonder why the babies now are so conscious now. They'd have to be with all the crap going on. On that note, I will say that I perceived a lot of the babies that are in pregnancy right now, that are gestating right now, and that are being born right now, are literally former occupants of inner earth, like the Agarthans, the very highly cultivated people that are like, we can't just live in a protected psychic bubble anymore. We've got to actually roll up our sleeves, get in there, and do something. And they're coming in, and they're totally kicking ass. They're really wonderful. Cheryl, thank you so much. She says, wonderful class today. Thank you so much. Thank you very much, guys. When I speak about the current events and topics like that, I never mean to be giving anybody a lecture or anything like that. Like, I think you understand, like, I'm sharing my ideas and my approaches. I allow everybody have their own ideas and approaches. And also, I'm making this face of pain because mostly what I want to talk about are solutions and things that are cosmic and universal, or outfits that go with everything, that are applicable in any situation. And when I speak about these things, I'm speaking from this moment now in this cultural context. So I'll also say, like, to anyone who might come upon this video days, weeks, months, or years, in the future, please don't take my words out of context. Understand where, this is coming from, where this viewpoint is coming from, this point at this time, and that, it might change and evolve as new information comes to light. I need to end this recording because it's going to be a long upload. Thank you for all the wonderful insight that people have lots of good questions and insights, and I really appreciate you sharing that with me. And yes, so thank you very much. And I encourage everybody, enroll, take the class, enroll. Thank you so much.